Let me describe a day that might sound familiar. You wake up. Before you're fully conscious, the first thing you do is check your phone. There are 7 notifications. You haven't been awake for 60 seconds, and you're already processing other people's needs and expectations. You tell yourself you'll just check quickly. 20 minutes later, you get out of bed, slightly behind, slightly tense, with a low-grade feeling you can't quite name that will follow you for the rest of the morning. By 10 a.m., you've had 2 back-to-back meetings, written 4 emails, and answered 6 messages. You're technically productive. You're also already tired in that specific way that doesn't come from physical exertion, the deep, behind-the-eyes tiredness that is the nervous system's version of a red warning light. By 3 p.m., you're running on caffeine and willpower and the anxiety that you're not doing enough, even though you haven't stopped since you woke up. By 8 p.m., you're too exhausted to rest properly and too wired to sleep. And tomorrow, you'll do it again. Maybe slightly differently. Maybe with a new system. Maybe with a new app. But the structure will be identical, because the structure wasn't designed for you. And you've never been given permission to build one that actually is. Today, that changes. The modern productivity movement, the one that gave us time blocking and morning routines and the 5 a.m. club and the Pomodoro technique and deep work and getting things done, was built almost entirely on research conducted on neurotypical populations in relatively controlled environments. It assumes a nervous system that can context switch rapidly without significant cost, that can process a high volume of social and informational input throughout the day without degrading, that recovers from stimulation quickly and doesn't require extended quiet to return to full function. For roughly 80% of people, these are reasonable assumptions. Imperfect, but workable. For HSPs, for the 15 to 20% of people with a more finely calibrated nervous system, these assumptions are so wrong that following the productivity advice built on them is not just unhelpful, it is actively depleting. It's like using a map of the wrong city. The more carefully you follow the directions, the more lost you become. Here is what your nervous system actually does differently, and why it matters for how you structure your day. First, your nervous system processes incoming information more thoroughly. This is the depth of processing feature of high sensitivity, where a non-HSP might receive a piece of information, an email, a conversation, a decision request, and process it in a fairly linear, surface-level way. Your brain routes the same information through more cognitive and emotional layers before arriving at a response. This produces richer analysis and more nuanced thinking. It also takes significantly more time and energy. Second, your stimulation budget is smaller, not because you're weaker, but because you're running a more complex internal operation. Every interaction, every environmental input, every notification, every context switch costs more processing energy than it costs a non-HSP. You fill up faster. You need more recovery time. And when you consistently ignore these facts and push through anyway, the deficit accumulates in ways that eventually cannot be ignored. Third, your recovery requirements are specific and non-negotiable. Genuine rest for an HSP is not the same as downtime. Scrolling your phone in the evening is not recovery. Watching something loud and stimulating is not recovery. Recovery for an HSP typically requires genuine quiet, reduced stimulation, reduced social demand, and time for the nervous system to process what the day has brought in. Standard productivity systems don't account for any of this. So before we build anything, we need to understand what we're actually working with. Your nervous system does not operate at a flat level of capacity throughout the day. It moves through distinct phases, influenced by your circadian rhythm, your cortisol curve, the cumulative stimulation load of your environment, and the specific demands of your HSP processing architecture. In general terms, here is what a typical HSP energy day looks like, if you pay close attention to it. The first 90 minutes after waking are fragile. Your cortisol naturally peaks in the morning, the cortisol awakening response, which primes you for alertness. But your nervous system is also at its most permeable. It hasn't yet built the day's filtering capacity. Input lands more rawly, which means that what you do in the first hour of your day has a disproportionate effect on your nervous system's tone for the entire day that follows. Flood it with social media and notifications and other people's urgencies, and you have effectively set your nervous system to a reactive baseline for the next 12 hours. Protect it, and you have given yourself the best possible starting conditions. Your peak cognitive window, the period of deepest focus and richest thinking, is typically a 2 to 3 hour block, usually in the late morning. This is when your working memory is most available, your executive function is at its best, and your ability to hold complex ideas is strongest. For HSPs, this window is real and valuable, but it is also more sensitive to interruption than it is for non-HSPs. A meeting dropped into the middle of your peak window doesn't just cost you the meeting time, it costs you the return to depth afterward, which can take 30 to 90 minutes. The early afternoon brings a natural biological dip, the post-lunch circadian trough, during which deep cognitive work becomes genuinely harder. This is not a personal failing. It is a feature of human physiology. Fighting it is expensive. Working with it is free. The late afternoon often brings a secondary window of more diffuse, associative thinking, less sharp than the morning peak, but well suited for synthesis, creative connections, and reflective work. Many HSPs find that their best ideas arrive here in the more relaxed attention of late afternoon. And then there is the evening, which should be, wherever possible, a genuine decompression zone, not a continuation of the day by other means. So here is how you actually design a day around this. Principle 1. Protect the first hour. The first hour of your day should be free of other people's demands. No phone, no email, no news, no social media. This is not laziness, and it is not privilege. It is a basic maintenance requirement for your nervous system type. Use this time for whatever genuinely returns you to yourself. Slow movement, journaling, a walk, reading something you chose, sitting quietly with coffee. The specific activity matters less than the quality of the attention. It should be chosen, not reactive. Incoming, not outgoing. I am not going to tell you this is easy. If you have children, or a demanding job, or a partner whose rhythms don't match yours, protecting this time requires real negotiation and real intention. But the return on investment, in sustained energy, in emotional regulation, in the quality of your thinking throughout the day, is extraordinary. This is your most important structural decision. Principle 2. Schedule your deep work first. Place your most cognitively demanding work, the work that requires your fullest attention, your most complex thinking, in your peak morning window. And protect that window from meetings, from messages, from anything that requires social processing, because social processing is one of the most energetically expensive things an HSP does. A single hour of genuine deep work, uninterrupted, in your peak window will produce more than 3 hours of fragmented effort spread across the rest of the day, if you have any influence over your schedule. And even if you think you don't, you may have more than you realize. This is where to spend that influence. Guard the morning. Principle 3. Build transition time between activities, especially between different types of activities. Build deliberate transition time. 5 minutes between meetings. 10 minutes after a difficult conversation before starting something new. 15 minutes of quiet after a social event before returning to cognitive work. This is not wasted time. This is the time your nervous system uses to close the previous loop, recalibrate, and arrive properly at the next thing. Without it, you carry the residue of everything into everything else. With it, each part of your day is actually available to you. Principle 4. Use the dip. Don't fight it. Schedule your lowest cognitive demand tasks in the early afternoon trough. Administrative work, routine emails, organizing, anything that doesn't require genuine depth. If possible, build a 15 to 20 minute rest or quiet period here. Even simply closing your eyes in silence for 15 minutes, not sleeping, just resting, has been shown in research on cognitive restoration to meaningfully restore attentional resources. For HSPs specifically, this midday reset can make the difference between a functional afternoon and an evening-long recovery. Principle 5. Design a hard stop and a real evening. Choose a time at which your workday actually ends, and protect it with the same energy you give to your morning. The evening is not overflow time. It is not catch-up time. For an HSP, the evening is when the day's accumulated input needs to be processed, integrated, and released. The activities that support this are different for everyone. Some people need movement, some need creative work, some need quiet reading, some need real conversation with someone they trust. What matters is that the evening is chosen, not consumed by default. Your phone's place in the evening deserves its own mention. If you can put it in another room, do. The low-grade stimulation of passive scrolling, even when it feels relaxing, keeps the nervous system in a mild state of alertness that prevents the deeper recovery you actually need. I want to be honest with you about something. The day I've described, the protected morning, the uninterrupted deep work block, the structured transitions, the genuine evening, is an ideal. And real life has children and meetings and commutes and deadlines and all the things that make ideals complicated. So here is how to actually use this. Start with an audit. Before you change anything, spend 1 week simply observing. Keep a brief log, even just 3 words at a time, of when you feel energized, when you feel depleted, when your thinking is clearest, and when you're just surviving. Most HSPs, when they actually map this out explicitly, are surprised by how consistent and predictable their energy patterns are. The pattern is already there. You're just making it visible. Then make one change at a time, not a full system overhaul, one structural decision. Often the highest leverage first move is protecting the first 30 minutes of the morning. Just 30 minutes, no phone, whatever you choose to do with it. Do that for 2 weeks before you add anything else. Then look at where your deep work is scheduled and whether it's protected from interruption. If it isn't, what is the smallest change that would improve that? One boundary with one person? One meeting moved by 1 hour? Build incrementally. Your nervous system is not going to suddenly become low maintenance if you design the perfect schedule. But it will stop operating at a permanent deficit. And that difference, the difference between running on depleted reserves and running on what you actually have, is the difference between surviving your days and inhabiting them. The philosopher Simone Weil wrote that attention is a form of love. She meant it in a spiritual sense, that to truly attend to something is to give it a piece of yourself. I think about that in the context of how we design our days, because the way most of us structure our days is the opposite of attention. It's a performance of busyness that prevents genuine contact with anything, including ourselves. When you design a day around your actual nervous system, when you protect the fragile hours, honor the real energy curve, build in genuine recovery, you are not being self-indulgent. You are creating the conditions in which your actual capacities become available, not the depleted, reactive, survival mode version of you that most of your days have been calling up, the real version. The world will tell you there isn't time for this, that rest is a reward, not a structure, that sensitivity is something to manage between productivity tasks. The world is wrong about this, and somewhere in you, you already know it. Start with tomorrow morning. Just the first 30 minutes. Put the phone down. Choose what you do with that time. See what arrives when you stop flooding your nervous system before it's had a chance to wake up properly. That's all. We'll build from there.